Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Google Classroom training. Kyle, we're going to wait a few more minutes to get everyone online, and I'm going to start taking attendance now. Once I see that we have everyone, I'll give you the go.
Thank you.
No problem. While we wait, did anyone have any questions about yesterday's training? Nope.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are back for our second day of Google Classroom training. If you have anything from yesterday that you had questions about, please put that in the chat, and we are going to go ahead and start. I added a little more information on rubrics. So we are going to take a look at those today. And then we'll start looking at other things that you can start creating assignments with, and we'll start collaborating together on G Suite products. So let's share the screen. So rubrics in Google Classroom, when you enter your assignments, you'll be able to have an area for rubrics. When you get there, you'll get all these things, and we'll discuss what they mean. So first you have criterion. That's just the name of what you're trying to describe. So maybe they're doing a project, and that's so usually from like a standpoint, a lot of English teachers use this. They might look at the introductory paragraph, and then the description is did you write the introductory to your essay? And then you assign points. So points is what you're going to decide. Maybe you want the project to be 25% of, or you want this criteria to be 25% of the overall project. Then you'll go ahead and assign a level. And when they say level, that means was it above average, average, or below average? And then you'll provide a description of why it was the way it is. If it was superior, what did they add? What was important about it? And then, or you could just copy and paste from curriculum that you already have. It gets very tricky and can get really complicated very quickly in rubrics. It has a plus button. So every time you want to add a level, so you'd have like above average, average, below average, you would keep adding this to the criteria. So then once you're finished adding it and going through and practicing, it looks like this. So then the student is going to be able to see how it's graded and what they need to do to receive that grade. And they will see that in their assignment. So let's take a quick look. Like address. Let's see if we can get this in here. Nope. I'll go to the video really quickly. So when you're creating the rubric, what will happen is and we'll get a quick walkthrough. So you're in your assignment, and then you'll just add that plus, you'll add that rubric right here at the bottom right here. And then when you add it, what will happen is that you can create it, you can reuse rubrics, or you could create one from a Google Sheet. That's a little advanced using the Google Sheet, but in this case, in this project, the student was required to write a description of the project. And then the student describes the project, and then you would want to have something like, this would be the top of the rubric, so it's worth 50% of the grade. The level here is excellent because the student did an excellent job, and it was excellent because they wrote 4 paragraphs and it was just well written. So you'd have to put in, the description's always nice because the more information a student has and the clarity they have, the better they can understand what's expected of them. Then this would be the second portion of it. The student has about 40 points. And then maybe that you just consider that average. So the student wrote less than a paragraph. But maybe they were okay. It wasn't the best thing you've ever seen, but it was correct, and it was missing a few details, so they just get an average. And then you select that plus sign to add another level. In this case, it was below average. And the student wrote less than a paragraph with grammar mistakes, and details were confusing. Then as you go down, you can add more criterion. So this is 50%. Now this is the other 50%. In this assignment, they might be asking for photos of a project, of the beginning, middle, and end. So the description would be, the student added the photos, and then you're going to have 3 criteria here. Like the first one would be, it's amazing, it's excellent, I see the photos, I understand it, the details were good, I can definitely see a beginning, middle, and end of what was done. So now the whole project is worth 100 points. If you notice in the right-hand side right here, every time you add maximum points. So you start off with the total points, the maximum number of points that a student could receive when you create a rubric in Google Classroom. So again, you can write as little or as much as you want, or you can just you can copy and paste. And then of course, the one is basically every time you have a rubric, the one that's going to be below average is going to be the student didn't put any effort in. So you save it, it's ready to go. Then you save or assign it. And now we're going to view it from a student perspective. This is the student. The student looks at the Google Doc or whatever criteria. You could have put a slideshow in if you wanted to. And in the Google Doc, the student just wrote test. They come back to their assignment, they view it, and inside of it, they can see the rubric that's being used, that they're being graded on. So you've got 50 there, 50 here. So the student can understand what they're getting into before they submit or turn it in. So obviously, maybe the student looked at it, they feel like they've turned in good work, they'll turn it in. And now we'll go back to the teacher view. So the teacher sees that something's been turned in, they want to grade it, they'll click on that Google Doc that's been turned in, and then they have the rubric on the right-hand side to choose from. So this wasn't, if they were really grading it right here, the teacher would take a look at it. There's not really much of a description, so they'll select below average. And then they'll go to the next criterion and they'll say that, you know, there's no photos there, so that's also below average. So the student gets a 60, it's all calculated for you, you can return it, and then the student receives their grade. So that is the rubric portion of it, and you'll be receiving this in a video and have access to that to go back to it. But now you've you have a feel for how that would work in terms of grading and utilizing that rubric. So then that leads to the grading portion of Google Classroom. So just like you were using the rubric you'll get the assignment turned into you, and you have options here. You can read what the student wrote, and remember, you can utilize a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, or Google Slides, and then whatever you determine, if this is just hand grading, you would input the grade here, and then you could write a private comment to the student. So then they return the assignment, then you return it to them and they get it back. Remember, they can keep resubmitting all that they want. So you might find that when students, they might change it and return it and try to get a grade, and that's up to you whether or not you want them to get if you want them to redo it as many times as you want. So then under Google Classroom, when you select grades, you'll notice that they have the gradebook is live, and then you can change what you can see a huge bird's eye view of all of the assignments that you've given and the grades those students have received. And it will tell you whether or not the assignment is missing. You can decide whether or not to penalize the student for being late. But basically grades right there. The grade book is really simple. It's built off of your assignments. You don't have to add anything to this grade book at all. It's totally synced to what you want. And then in any individual classroom assignment, if I go to an assignment, there's going to be a little settings wheel. And it's a really odd thing right here because the setting wheel allows you to create a spreadsheet, copy all grades to Google Sheets, download all grades as a CSV file. Basically, what it's really meant for is that if you have a student information system, what that does is that the IT person, you can give them the spreadsheet and they'll upload it to the system. For your benefit, it really doesn't do anything unless you like spreadsheets. So if you're a spreadsheet nerd, that is just going to copy all the grades to a Google Sheet. The gradebook doesn't update or anything. It just is kind of there. So usually that's best at the end of a quarter or a semester when all of the grades are done. That provides you with a separate copy in Google Sheets. And then there's the video that you'll have access to if you want to go back to grading assignments. And then yesterday, we did not get to looking at the stream. So if we are in Google Classroom, you can share anything with your class in the stream. So if you had some kind of interesting video or you wanted to share some information prior to that, you could create a stream announcement in your stream. You could select all your classes, one class, and you could actually send specific messages for students. Personally, I prefer emailing students one-on-one to get them to go back and forth. But in this case, I'll just do a sample stream announcement right here. So then we'll be meeting virtually at 10 a.m. You could also add a link to this for the Google Meet. And then you can just post it. So whatever you'd like to do, you can add a Google Drive file, link file, YouTube clip, whatever you want on the stream. And it does get messy at times. And then again, you can post it, schedule it, save it whenever you'd like. If you're a person who likes to be organized, you can go ahead and we'll post it in this one class right here. And then I'll post another thing as an example. So now we've got two things right here and it's getting clogged up. You can see people can add class comments if you turn that on. I suggest leaving that off just because some students might be doing silly things. And you can move your announcements up. So I can move it to the top if I want. The only thing is that I can't grab it. This is one thing to understand, is that if you wanted to organize everything, you are going to sit there forever and move things to the top. So if I wanted to move this to the top, I wish it allowed you to just grab it, but it does not. So you can move it to the top. And of course, you can always edit this, moving it up and down. So that's specifically the stream. You can utilize that. And within, they just added this. This is something that you can decide to turn on or off. You can add a Google Meet, but I really do suggest, I do prefer, if your institute uses Zoom and they pay for it, I definitely would suggest utilizing Zoom. Meet, it's going to have its own it's going to have limited features starting after August, unless you pay for the enterprise version of G Suite. So Meet won't have as many options as Zoom, but just to go over the Meet area, if you have it turned on, you could turn on the Meet. I'm not going to go turn it on right now because we're in a conference and it might echo or go crazy. But what it does is that you, as the teacher, when you are in the video conference, nobody else can come in. So you have to be in it, and then the students can enter. That's the way they've set it up thus far. It's not perfect. Sometimes I've had colleagues say it does work and it doesn't work, but you do have that Meet option now in Google Classroom. And remember, if you go to individual settings right here, you can always turn it off. So you can turn it off right here. So the students, it's not visible to students, and you can always reset it in case something's going, if it's going haywire. So that is the deal with the Google Meets area for Google Classroom. So we've gone through grading assignments. We've done the sharing the files. Let's talk about the different types of assignments and ways to collaborate in Google. So with students, when you're creating activities, you don't have to always create a Google Doc. You can use slides. Slides are very useful for projects. You can also do a lot of different things with slides. It's just not for presentations, and we can all collaborate at the same time. So this is good for group work, and a lot of people will also utilize this for graphic design, believe it or not. So if you wanted students to create a banner or something, you could give them their own, they could collaborate and tell them they work on slide 1 or slide 2. But the one option I wish you could have is assigning students to I wish students you could add their like give one slide to assign each slide to one student, and they couldn't work on anything else because students will go to other people's slides and they'll go crazy on it. But you can remember our sharing options. So one person yesterday indicated that anonymous people were coming in and changing things, and I'll show you when I put this in the chat how to change that. So we'll title this as an example, and you can have people collaborate at the same time. So this is kind of getting to understand how slides works. I'm going to change this to anyone with the link when you give away the link right here. So again, to go over, if it's restricted, I'm only going to give access to people with the link. So only people added can open it. So that means person, Timmy, if I give this link to Tommy and Jen, they can only open it. If you're working from a G Suite, yep, this would be a PowerPoint. This would be an example of a PowerPoint presentation. But you can also do a few things with it too. If you have it on your G Suite for education domain, it's only restricted for those people. Or you can make it anyone with the link. And remember, if you make them editor, then anyone anonymous can come in and do whatever they want, and you don't know who did it. But in this case, I trust everyone, and everyone can join in and kind of play around with slides if you've never done that, just to get acquainted with it. I will copy this link right here and put it in the chat. And then I'll put my name in here, and everyone is on it. We're working together. You can change the fonts. I'll choose Impact. And I can make a sample assignment here. I can ask people to put in so you can set things up for the presentation portion of it. Some people like to put in shapes. You can see that Dan's putting his name in the box. Shapes you can put in, if you click on a shape, you can start putting text into a shape. So now right now we're collaborating. So if you have group work, and we're testing all of the features in slides. And then if people were signed into their Gmail account, they could, you could have a chat open too. So that's another feature. So as people are playing around with slides, what you can do is also, you can change the page setup. So you can change it to custom. So if you wanted it, say, you could change it to whatever you wanted to, and then people can download it as, you can download it as a Microsoft PowerPoint if you wanted to, an ODP, a PDF, plain text, or they could make it images. That's why a lot of people make this into like kind of a Swiss Army knife, because then you can add photos, you can change things up, you can make this into a book if you wanted to. So if you wanted to be creative in making your assignments, you could change, you could do everything. And then you also have version history. So I can see who is making changes, when they were made. So basically, if you have students who are, if you have something that looks really interesting in terms of an assignment, it looks very similar to another student, you could always check version history on these and see what was done or who made changes, because that does happen often. Students we know get desperate and want to try to maximize all that they can. Oh, you can also add in audio. So if you record MP3 files, you can add in music and increase that multimedia portion of your Google Slides. So Slides is another thing you can add to your Google Classroom assignments. And then we have, so that's Slides. And everything within Google can be shared and played with. Yep, you can put in a YouTube clip right there, and you can format it to play automatically. So Slides is kind of like your interactive materials. Yes, so if you see anonymous animals right here, those are the people on the call, or they could have been if someone was being mischievous right now, they could call up their friend and give the link. Therefore, it's not a best practice when you are giving links out to make anyone with the link and make them editors, because then you do not know who they are. That's why it's better to keep it within your domain and then have it whitelisted or trusted to other domains out there. It's based upon your IT department. But in this case, we're all anonymous, so we don't have to be signed in and restrict access, because that may happen. So Slides itself is kind of, most of the time it's going to be used for your presentations, but there's other ways to utilize it. One example I did was I used it to make name badges for a PD course. So there's a lot of things that you can just be innovative with Slides. The next one that's not so fun is, it's not as fun, it's probably the most boring one, is just spreadsheets. If you had to have students calculating some work, or they had to have a project in terms of creating finances, and I'll share this one out too. And then the theme is that we can all collaborate at the same time. Anyone with the link editor, I'll copy this link in. And we can play around with that. So we are in Sheets right now. So this is another thing you can assign as a Google Classroom assignment. And then you can say item, apple, orange, and then cost. Let's put 89 cents. So then you can start doing averages and formulas and all this kind of stuff. So if I put equal, and then I'll make this bigger so we can, everyone wants to play around with that. So we can go like average. So you can have students do cost analysis or whatever, if they have to use any kind of calculations or numbers. This is where you would set up your assignment in Google Sheets and then assign it. Not really much to do besides formulas, but it is handy if you're doing any kind of data analysis. A really cool feature, if anyone wants to press it, you can press Explore, and it does a lot of things for us. Like it can create a graph. So we can easily just input a graph in here. and you just slide it in, and it made it for us without being too technical. So if you're afraid of spreadsheets, someone put a pair, great job. They made that 89 cents, and our average is 89 now, and people are putting changes in. The graph will update by itself. So really, you don't have to be a super spreadsheets wizard to really do anything super duper with this, but there are advanced features and add-ons that we'll talk about in a moment about Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides that you can add on to. So that's Sheets. Sheets is just a spreadsheets. It's the equivalent of Microsoft Excel. Excel by itself, if you're on the desktop app, does more, but Google Sheets does do a lot. And again, you can collaborate with this in the cloud. One thing that people don't really know too much about is Google Drawings. If I go to drawings.com, this one is used primarily for drawing things. So we've got Untitled Drawing. You can assign this as a Google Classroom assignment. What a lot of people use this for from the education standpoint is they use it for graphic organizers. So I'll copy the link, put that in there too. So this one, it has a lot of the same features as Slides, but again, you can now start putting in shapes. You can search the web for images. I'll put the Orioles, even though I think that baseball is going to be canceled. People can put images in without having it on their local computer. And you can do all sorts of things to manipulate graphics. So if someone was kind of getting an idea for a project, they could set this up here, or they could set up rooms and go through there. And did I allow people to edit? See, I didn't allow, now everyone can edit. Sorry about that. That does happen. So now everyone should be able to go in and edit and play around with it. You can do scribbles. I added Orioles when I went into insert image and I searched the web for it, and then you can draw it in. So a really cool feature is that if someone on their laptop, if they have a camera on their laptop, they could take a picture of the project and put it into a Google drawing. They could also put it in by a URL, which is just a link, or their drive. So if they have images in their drive, they can add that there too. You can always erase. Remember, in Google, if you delete something, you can always get it back by undo and redo. It's really forgiving in terms of that, in terms of deleting things.
To delete our last conversation, just say, "Hey Google, delete my last conversation."
That's the Google Home going off. But that's the really nice part about Google Drawings is that even though people think it's just for drawings and stuff, there's so many things that you can use it for. And you have all kinds of different shapes that you can manipulate here. You have arrows. You've got call outs. Chelsea said this would be useful for blueprints. So it's really quick, easy. Obviously, it doesn't take a lot of, it's not a huge learning curve. So it's pretty easy to get intuitive with it. And again, you can download it as a PDF. a JPEG, a PNG, or a SVG file. Most of the time, it's going to be either a PDF, JPEG, or a PNG. And you can always publish, like with slides, sheets, and drawings, a lot of the Google things you can publish to the web. We have a Boston Red Sox fan. They usually win. Fun fact is that a lot of people from Boston, when we do have Major League Baseball, you can go ahead. A lot of people from Boston, New York fly down to Baltimore because it's cheaper to fly in and get tickets at Oriole Park. So that's drawings. We also have another fan favorite is Jamboard. So Jamboard is a digital whiteboard. It was conceived for Google's business sector, but it's transpired over to education. And it's just a digital whiteboard. It's a lot of collaboration in terms of ideas. So I'll title the jam, example jam. And then change the link. There we go. Oops. And then on the jam, you have a pen, marker, highlighter, brush, different tools. You have an eraser, a select, a sticky note. You can put images in. And you have a laser pointer. So if I put the sticky note in, oh, link did not work. Thanks. Let's see here. I was wondering when everyone was. All right, that one, let's see if it's, there we go. Thank you, Dan. So you can put a sticky note here. You can make it as big or as small as you want. That's the text. You can put different types of backgrounds. I see someone change the background to, this is the graph. You could have squares. You could put an image in. Exactly. You put an image somewhere and you can make it increase the size and you can rotate it. You can create another frame that I'm on. People might be on the other one, but this is what I've got right here. So essentially you can have up to 50 people at once on one of these. You could assign it to a student. Say you want them to just kind of brainstorm an idea for a project or give details on what they're doing. This would be an idea that you could add, that they could set up. You could assign it to them. They would complete it. They would turn it in, and then you could see what they did. You can add an image in here. What a lot of people also like to do is they like to put Gifs in. Let's see here. So if you get somewhat good with technology, what you could do is you could put students, or you could learn how to make 30-second animated GIFs, and you could put them into you could put them into Google Slides too. But you can put video in. So animated GIFs are just 30-second videos without any sound. So Jamboard is one of those things, another resource that Google offers that you can make an assignment in Google Classroom. We've got, what else do we have? Forms. Forms are going to be interesting. So we will go over forms. So we've gone over slides, drawings, Jamboard, and spreadsheets. Those are examples of what you can do. Someone had too much to drink last night and he's not having a good morning. That's happened to the best of us. Someone doesn't like the Denver Broncos. So Jamboard is a fun tool to use readily, easily. Everyone just hopped on and was able to use it. So it's not, that one's not a big learning curve. Forms are going to be a big learning curve. So forms.google. So you can go to forms.google, create a blank form, and then I'll title it Quiz 1. And if you really were a super duper organized person, what you would, if I were back in the classroom, I would create every single question in the entire world onto one Google form, because it allows you to import questions, and we'll show that in a moment. But for a quiz, most of the time you say name, and then I always like first name and last name because that's easier to organize on the spreadsheet. And then we'll add a question, but you can import questions. So if you added every single question, if you created a Google form and just spent time at it, you could have one big, huge database, and then you can import any question that you ever wanted to. I wish they would add a Google Sheet so I could have everything in a spreadsheet and copy and paste, but they don't have that option. So options here that you can have different types of questions. You can have multiple choice, short answer, paragraph, checkboxes, drop downs. You can have students upload files. I'm not a big fan of it, but you can have students record a file and upload it. You can have linear scales. You can have a multiple choice grid that most people experienced with our example quiz. You can have a checkbox grid, and then you can have date and times. So some businesses use this as a means of checking in. And that's what some schools have been doing to make sure that students are where they need to be at a specific time. And they can lie about it, but when they submit that Google form, it's got a timestamp in it that you can see. So I'll just put one sample question right here. What is 2 + 2? And here you put your answers here. And then you can put images in. Anywhere here it kind of just pops up. You'll get an image. You can force this to be required. So they have to do that. And then to make this a quiz, you have to select this option, make this a quiz, and then you have options. If they all have Chromebooks, it's on locked mode. That's usually for schools. But then you can release the grade immediately after each submission. They can see which questions they missed, correct answers if you want. This is all different things that you can allow people to do. And then answer key, you can put how many points this is worth, 100 points. Select the right answer, click done. If you wanted also, you could add video. You could assign it to the entire class and require their emails address to be put in. I always put last name in just because I just like it when I organize it in a Google Sheet. That's the only reason why I always do first name and last name first. But yes, you can have them require their email address. In this instance, collect email addresses, and then I don't have to have first name or last name. I can require the email addresses to be collected. And then they can edit after submit, and then they can see, you can decide if they want to see summary charts, and you can also limit them to one response. Also, really important, you can require them to be in the specific G Suite, or you can have it open. So it depends on your situation. I'll turn this off, obviously, and then save it. Yes. You can open this up on, if you're on a Mac computer, you can open this up in the Google Chrome browser. You can access this on any mobile phone. So that it's not the best option to do this on a mobile phone. I don't suggest to do so, but you can access and complete this using a smartphone. You can give a confirmation message. You can save it. So this is this quiz right here. If anyone wants to take it, I will put that in the chat. And hopefully it will work. We shall see. There's always, sometimes there's a technical glitch. So that's sent in the chat, but this is saved in your Google Drive. So when it's saved in your Google Drive, you can add this to your Google Classroom. And this is what I suggest doing. I would suggest not doing the create a quiz option within Google Classroom. I would suggest creating your quiz outside of it and adding it to your form. So I'll show that while we'll get responses in, and then I'll show you what to do. And then a key thing is that you can have, I suggest making Google Form quizzes very short. The reason being is that this is not automatically saved. So if the power goes out, if the internet goes down, if the student closes their computer, if they exit out for any reason, all of that work is gone. There is a huge workaround that you can use, but you have to utilize an add-on, and you might have to go through the Google Apps script, which requires a little knowledge of coding in order to have that saved. And that's not going to work for most people. And that's a huge learning curve. So fingers crossed, hopefully that becomes auto-saving for Google Forms becomes an option in the near future. I hope that happens, because then you can put exams on and not worry about all the work being gone if someone closes the browser tab or if their computer shuts off. So then if you were noticing, I saw live responses showing up. Perfect. Everyone got 100. That's what I expected. This group is awesome. Everyone got 100. You got your responses here. I can see kind of, you don't have to be a spreadsheet nerd to get any kind of synopsis here, but I love spreadsheets. And you can add this to a spreadsheet to drive further down. I actually prefer it because then I get to see things as they come in. I can see email addresses, timestamps right here. I just like the spreadsheet to accessing the Google Sheet because then I get a bird's eye view of the data even further, and I can drill down who needs more assistance. So that's a nice thing about Google Forms, is that it shoots it to your spreadsheets. And then you can also assign this to your classroom if you're just looking for information, like what do you need help with? What was good about that project? What are you not doing well with? And then you have it all saved in a sheet or a database. So Google Forms is one good for, it's good for getting data and giving quizzes. Expand on time duration. A timed quiz. Okay. How long it took for the task? No, you do not have that option of seeing how long they were taking on things. So if that's what you mean, Christopher, no, it doesn't tell you how long they spent on the quiz. You can look at, yes. So if we are looking here, you can look at the individual right here. And then you can go ahead and you can look at the email addresses right there. You can, if they edited the response, what you can do is, so I turned off the ability to edit. Oh yes, they can edit after they submit. So yes, you can. So we can go into Sheets and you can see that Steve right here, he updated his value. What it does is it tells you that they updated it, but let's see here, show edit history. So if you look in Google Sheets, you can see that they edited it. They replaced it 3 with a 4, and you can see when they did it. So in this case, it's anonymous just because I didn't restrict it to my G Suite domain. But yeah, you can tell in the spreadsheet how many times someone was editing things. And also in Google Forms, if you don't want them to be able to edit, you can turn that off. So they can't change it at any moment. So that's based on when you set up a form. So I can turn that on and off at will. And then, so in addition, we've got 17 responses. But if you were, I'm going to save this like that, that's saved. And then if you wanted to, with a form in Google Classroom, you can set up a due date and time, and then it will shut it off, that assignment. But here, there is a way to turn the form off. Also, you can add collaborators, and I will add people now. this is not going to be the same as the rest of everything. I can't see who's and where and doing what, but you can add collaborators, and I will add everyone here so they can play around. So you can have a co-teacher, you can add them with this, and you could work together on a form if you wanted to. So editors can and view and delete responses. So I will put that into the chat. So on the left-hand side, if you can see people populating in, you can see right there, they're on the left. I don't know who it is, but if you were in your own G Suite and you asked people to sign in, you would be able to see who was where and doing what. And it is fairly intuitive. It can get, Google Forms can be as simple as you want it to be, and it can get very, very crazy. So you see a lot of people are adding things. It can be a little bit disorganized. What you can also do is right there, you can turn off accepting responses too. So you can shut the form off manually if you want to. So you can collaborate too on this if you have a co-teacher, which is really nice. And then if you want to get into further things, you can send, after they end a question, you can send them to a section based on an answer. This is if you're going to get fancy with it. So if you wanted to have someone take a quiz and get immediate feedback of why they got something wrong, you could spend the time to do that. That is advanced features of Google Forms that you're able to do. I'm not sure if it's like, you can do it if you want, but that's something to test out. And if you wanted to contact me to go one-on-one on that, I could set something up and show you how to do that, because I found it's pretty resourceful. That is an awesome right there. You see identified lead. So you can put images in. You could take your own images and show that there, and people can answer those questions. So Forms is really resourceful. You can do a lot of things with it. Again, it's just about playing around with it and learning how it works, and then testing it with other people. It's always a good idea to get like a buddy and test it out to see how it works. And then with Forms, remember in Drive, we showed that yesterday. It's just like any Google or in Classroom. It's like any assignment right here, is that when you create classwork, you do create assignment, and then you just add it from your Google Drive. So there's the quiz right there. You can add it. You can insert it. You could do grade importing. You can turn that on. That'll import the grades. But the form has to have one response per user, collects the email addresses, and it can only be restricted to users in your domain. So if you have people outside of the domain, then you're going to have to hand grade it. That's the only thing you'll notice. And then you would just go ahead and assign it. I could go like that. I could put in a due date, title, but that's how I put in the quizzes. I never ever use the quiz assignment. only because it adds code to it and it makes things just really confusing and go haywire. So then you could put videos in. Just be aware of videos is that if right now YouTube's open, but if you start doing things in person in classrooms, test it out on the network. Most people have it on. Sometimes they don't, and then you can't access your YouTube videos. And you can't use Google, if you're trying to use Google Drive videos, you can't, you have to use YouTube. So that is basically Google Forms. Forms are useful. If anyone wanted advanced features and wanted to have a one-on-one about how to edit URLs, that is possible. You can get really, really super in depth with Google Forms. I built a referral system for Google Forms. So what would happen is that the form, a teacher fills out information, it gets sent to administrators. The administrators have access to a specific portion of the form, and they fill it out, and all that information gets put into like a Google Doc, and all the data is then graphed. So forms can be super duper complex or simple. And everyone took the sample quiz earlier with the sample Google Classroom. So you've experienced this as a student. And then in pre-surveys, yep, I was just getting to that. Forms. That came up. That's a perfect question. I helped a friend. They were teaching a beauty school to use G Suite, and that was another question. Can you export forms to a PDF or Microsoft Word? Exporting, well, they actually, I will reverse that. They expressed they wanted to import stuff. There's no way to import. I wish there was. The answer is exporting is no. Not easily. I can do it with an add-on called Autocrat, but that requires lots of learning and nuances to Autocrat. So your best bet is to take the Google Sheet. Oh, you can't even. And the best that you could do is copy the text. So no, you can't export it to PDF or Microsoft Word. That is one of the downfalls to utilizing forms, is that you have to utilize add-ons to kind of do those things. And then you have to learn the add-on. So that's always tough. So again, that's going to be saved in your drive. And there was one question someone asked about Microsoft. Microsoft is, you can, so I'm going to show you, if you have lived in Microsoft Word, Excel, that kind of stuff, I'll show you an example. So I will have my drive right here. So here's Google Drive. And Drive will have a settings right here. So you go to settings in your Drive, and then there is a small setting that says convert uploads. And it says convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format. If this is selected, that means if you upload a Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, that when you open it,
it will be converted to a Google Doc. And that means you will lose formatting. So if I don't select it, the new feature of Google Docs is that it keeps its native format as best as possible. It's better than it used to be. It's not perfect. If I have Microsoft Word docs from like 1998. Is it going to keep that format from the 98 version? Probably not. If you created a Microsoft Word document maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it's probably going to keep that formatting. So right here, I do not select this. And then what I can do is in Drive, I will make this smaller so we can all see. I'll select New, and then I'm going to create a folder. I got Microsoft Doc right here, and then I will upload. So I have Unit 01, 2020 Docs right there. That's my Microsoft Word file that I'm utilizing. I'll open that. And then it's going to upload. So if you notice, it's got the W that indicates it's a doc right there. I'll click on it. And then it's not going to automatically open with Google Docs. It's just going to open. And you have to say open with Google Docs. And when I click open with Google Docs, what you're going to notice is that in the upper left-hand corner, you see that it says DocX. That indicates that it's leaving this in its Microsoft Word format. It's not going to change. It's not going to change anything to it, but it is now, you're still working in a Microsoft Word doc. So that's really nice. Google bought a company, and that the DocX feature is still there. So everything is automatically saved. I'm still working in the Microsoft format, so you don't have to convert yourself into a Microsoft. You don't have to convert to a Google world until you're ready. Microsoft is still there. And that's what you would have to have turned. That's the setting you would have to have turned off in Google Drive. Can you create student transcripts from any Google app? Elaborate that for me. You could create one in you could do it in Sheets. You can make it in Docs. If you really wanted to, you can make it in Slides. But usually, I would say a transcript would be more likely from Google Docs or from all previous tests or quizzes. Interesting. Okay. So I'm trying to think of it. The quick answer is yes. If you were to scramble around and find everything in Google Classroom, that probably would be in grades. Let's see here. I'm going to switch to a class that I've already done. So I will do a new share. Give me one moment. Or maybe this will work. Nope, I have to do a new share. Bear with me. So I will go through a Google Classroom that I've graded. So this would be one that's been totally done. You can see over here, overall class averages. And then let's try this. So you could, So it does show everything that they've done in terms of your course via Google Classroom with the assignment. It'd be nice if they had a button to make this into a transcript right here. But what the best thing you could do is, like we talked previously, if you go to an assignment right here, or let's see, unit assignment 1. I'll take a look at it. Let's go back. Graded assignments. Look at Brian's right here. All right, we'll go back. Here we go. You can go to the copy all grades to Google Sheets. And then it'll pop up and there's kind of your transcript. It's not perfect. What you can do is you could select all of their information right here. We'll do a copy, and then you can have another sheet right there. So we have Angela's work right here, and then you would have to copy this information. It's not, I wish it was one-stop shop where you just pressed a button and got it, but that would be kind of the examples of all the tests and quizzes you'd have to do manually if a student wanted it. There we go. That would be kind of all their assignments there. And then when you go to people, you go back to classwork, you look at graded. And then in the gradebook, we'll go back. You can see all their stuff there. So you could take a picture of it if you wanted to, but that is specifically how you could get everyone's information. And then let's just go back to share. We'll go back to this one thing, bear one moment. And then someone asked to go over Microsoft again. So Microsoft right there, remember that one thing is in your settings, do not check, leave this unchecked, convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format. And then I've got my Microsoft Doc files uploaded, docx right here. I can click on it and then I'll open it with Google Docs. But on the flip side, if I have a Google Doc that I want, so let's go down here to a Google Doc. Here's the example document. You can download this in, and this works for sheets, slides, or docs. You can download this as a Microsoft document right here. So I'll go ahead and download it. And that's on my local computer. And let's see here. So it's down there, and you can see it's a Microsoft formula. And I'll upload it. Oh, I'll open it in Docs, and we'll share it. And there it is. I downloaded it as a Microsoft document. Now I can edit it, enable it, and I can edit it in Word. Here we go. So you do have the options of downloading things as a Microsoft Word doc. You can change, so you can go from a Google Doc to a Microsoft Word doc. You can go from Microsoft Word doc to a Google Doc. That's something to experiment with and play around with. So all hope is not lost. So if you were sitting here with some anxiety that you lived in a Microsoft world and you'd have to redo everything and copy paste or rewrite stuff, that your fears are relieved because you can utilize Microsoft in Google. So that's a good option. Even Google Home is happy. Let's see. Let's go back. And then let's talk about PDFs. So you can assign a PDF into Google Docs, but it gets a little bit odd. So let's see here, type. Do I have any PDFs in this one? Yes. Okay, so I have an animal model rubric right here. You can go to Google Classroom and assign it. So I'll add a Google Drive file. I'll add that rubric. Let's find it. So there's the PDF file. I've inserted it right here. Remember from yesterday, the student can view, the student can edit the file, or they can make a copy for each student. I'll just make this a copy and I'll assign it to everyone. I'll have to title it, give instructions. So this is where this can be interesting, and it can be an rubric. PDFs can be an obstacle. So I will assign it. So it's been assigned, but the thing about PDFs is this, is that if you're using the Google Chrome browser or anything else, you're going to have to connect it to something. So if the students aren't tech savvy, PDFs can become a problem. So I can open a PDF up with a Google Doc. It's going to cause formatting issues. I have something called Read and Write for Google Chrome that will open it up. And then you have to add third-party apps. So I will connect, you have to connect apps to make it editable. What I like to use, and it's free, it's called Doc Hub. You can connect it. So I've connected Doc Hub, and now I will select Open with Doc Hub, and I can make it editable. So it's going to ask you to choose your account. You're going to have to allow adding, and you kind of sign your life away. You trust them. I usually trust it. I don't have anything that is going to be worth millions of dollars in my G Suite or Google Drive. And now I can edit it. Doc Hub gives me all this kind of information, and then you can download it or it's saved to Drive. So PDFs can be tricky. You could have, if you're working with your IT department, they could basically force PDFs to be opened by a specific program. Why do I use DocHub? DocHub is free. That's why I use it. And I can usually do what I need to do in it. So I can put text in. Let's see if I can add collaborators. Huh. Anyone with this link can see the file. Anyone can see it. I can invite collaborators though, if I wanted to. So it's not very easy to share PDFs and work on it together like the other Google Docs. But I know that a lot of people and a lot of teachers have these, they have PDFs. So you'd have to work, you probably would have to set up like a conference with your students who don't use technology often. I know last time I trained in Baltimore, one of the instructors told me that they had a student who was 60 years old, and you'd be amazed, a 60-year-old might be better at, I've met older people who are way better at technology than I am, but I've also met people who are resistant and they always get confused. So the PDFs is going to be a learning curve area because you're going to have to connect it to something. And there's a ton of PDF editors out there. In the academic market, people like Cami, people like Read and Write, the PDF text reader, but you have to pay for those. Whereas when I use DocHub, it's free. And I do have a presentation on, I do have a PDF on DocHub that I will share with everyone in one moment, if I can get to it. But what happens is also, sometimes it does automatically save, sometimes it doesn't. So you have to come in here. There is a submit to Google Classroom in DocHub. It's not great, but it does exist and it's free. But you can, when you select Drive, you can update existing with the revision, or you can create a new copy. So I'll save as update existing, and then you have to select export to Drive. So again, the amount of work that goes into PDFs, it depends on what you want to do. If you definitely need PDFs, you're going to have to go through that learning curve. And then I'll export this to Google Drive, and it's saving. So there's no automatic saving, but that's how I use DocHub. So that's when you would add a PDF to your Google Classroom. Just be aware of it, that it's going to do that all the time, and you're going to have to open it with connected apps. So it can get all kinds of craziness, just so that you're aware of that. One thing, and that I kind of talked about yesterday, was screencasting. Screencasting is great. It is definitely something you want to be able to do. And let's see here. Let's see if I have this. I set it up for today. Especially in the environment that we're in right now. Screencastify. Okay. I will bring that up in a second. But Screencastify, what it is I will add it to our chat, is that Google Chrome has these things called extensions. Extensions are like cloud-based software. You have to be signed in and synced to your Google, the Google Chrome browser with your account. And you know you're synced when you're signed in up here. So sync is on, manage my Google account right there. If people need further help with that, I can help them out, because that's something, some people get confused by that and they need like one-on-one teaching for it. So in the Google Chrome Web Store, I will select Screencastify. It's right here. I will put it for people in the chat. And what Screencastify does is it allows you to record your screen and you can create lessons. So if you want people to be asynchronous, say someone's busy, but they still want to go over the lessons, or you don't want to talk and you just want them to view the lessons, you can have that option. And then Screencastify basically turns your screen into screen capturing. So then let's share this out. Give me 1 second. There we go. So what's the deal with Screencastify? It's not showing up. So basically, it's pretty simple. It's intuitive. If I'm here, I select, I wish I could make this bigger, but I select the Screencastify icon, and we can be in a slide. So we'll just do a Google Slides presentation. Whatever I have on the screen, I can click here. I'll click present. I'll escape for full screen. So I have this on my screen, and now I can add Screencastify. Screencastify is Screencastify will allow me to record my screen. I can do a browser tab. I can do my whole entire desktop. I press record. And now I'm recording. What I can do is I can change the mouse to focus on this while I talk. I can hide my cursor so it's hidden when it's not moving. Then I can also highlight clicks. So wherever I click, it records the click. So if you want to do some kind of software tutorial or something, you can add that. You can also select you can make this into an annotation tools right here while you're talking. You can erase it. You can change the color. So you can have different areas right here. You can erase it, clear it. And then when you're done, you can turn it off. You could, if you weren't satisfied with it, you could restart, you could delete it. But when I'll end it, I feel good about my lesson. And now if I wanted to, I could share this to Google Classroom right away, or I could download it as an MP4. I could export this as that animated GIF that we were talking about. And the nice thing is that it is saved in your Google Drive. So in Google Drive, it's saved under Screencastify. You own it, it's yours, and it's there. So you can make, you can do screencasts on the front end. I have students, when I taught special education, they were non-readers. So I would have them record themselves talking to me. And you can add it to, you can add Screencastify. You can have them do projects on their end and submit it so that you're not constantly doing kind of academic work. That's what I would have my students do. And all of a sudden, Screencastify becomes a way to interact. Now, the thing about that, though, is that it is only 5 minutes long. That's all you get. And that's okay, because if you were to do that longer than 5 minutes, you might drive yourself crazy. And yep, you can have the Google Classroom app. So if you wanted to grade things on the fly, you can have access to it. But let's see here. I have it actually on my phone. The advantage of having it on your phone is that your students can access files all the time. And I wish I could show this. You can create classes, join classes. And let's see here. I think if you really wanted to, you could create assignments on it. But you can grade things and go back and forth. So you do have a lot of functionality with it, but it's not going to be totally like the desktop app. But you can create assignments in the app if you wanted to. And just like yesterday, if you wanted to give feedback, you can handwrite feedback. So Screencastify is something that a lot of people utilize with Google Classroom, especially in an environment that we're working in now. And let's see if this showed up. I keep sharing the Screencastify session with me to share with you guys, and it's not showing up. This is going to drive me. Well, let's do the link. Get that over there. And there's videos on how to utilize it. But it is very intuitive, very easy to use, and it's a very helpful resource when creating assignments. So there is the link to the Screencastify tutorial in the chat that everyone can kind of view. So that's a resource just to learn it, how to get to it, how to utilize it. But Screencastify is easy. I would suggest kind of just playing around with it at first to test it out. And it's a really good resource. You could set up a camera to it on your laptop. So if you wanted to show students how to do something, you could utilize it that way. And now we can talk about with Google Classroom. So we've talked about all the assignments that you can, types of assignments that you can add when you create an assignment. We talked about editing assignments. Don't use the folder. Don't mess around with your classroom folder. What else? So we have about 22 minutes left. I'm going to go over some add-ons that I like. We'll talk about Chrome extensions and that kind of things that can enhance G Suite and help you out. But if you have further questions, you can ask in the chat. But I'm going to go over the Chrome Web Store. So the Chrome Web Store allows for a lot of versatility. So one thing, I'll go through a few that I like. I like WebPaint. And I will put that in the chat. So WebPaint allows you to start drawing over things and annotating. So I will put that in the chat too. So WebPaint is neat. Screencastify was an extension that we went over. I'll quickly show you WebPaint. WebPaint just allows you to annotate on top. It's not supported. Okay. So if you wanted to use Web Paint right here on the fly when you're doing something, you can go over here and explain things in the Chrome browser. So that's what Web Paint does. So that's a useful feature. Chelsea wants to go over, briefly go over the practical use of Google Classroom for Trades. So the practical use is importing all of the curriculum into for your Google Classroom. What I would do is first, I would set up Google Drive, and whatever you have for your curriculum, I would do a folder upload or create a folder. That's what I would do with any kind of electronic or digital information that you have. Then with the classwork assignments, you could set that up as projects, and then you could require students to perform whatever curriculum that you have set up. So for instance, someone said, I saw they had lead identification, so we'll put in a title here. Nice. So with the lead identification, you could put if they had access to it. So I'm from the mindset that we're doing distance learning, but if you wanted to do if life was regular, you could put in so there we go. And then you could say paste. So you could do this different ways that we went over. So you could put it in a doc. They could put it in a slide. They could put it in a Jamboard. They could put it into a drawing. Any way, actually, let's change this. On the fly, and then you could add the file link wherever you wanted to go. If you had a link of how to identify something, they could do that. They could put you could create a Google file with a doc right here. I'll put that in the example doc, and then I'll quickly edit it, and then I will go to that one question. So what you could do is you could quickly put in a table. And that would tell them where to put the photo. And that's automatically saved. Videos and photos are going to be crucial. So teachers could, I would definitely put videos and then put them as lecture. I would lectures and put the quiz at the end. You could put the lecture with the questions in between. So if you had a Google form, and I'm just using this as an example for a blank quiz, is that you could upload your photo to YouTube. You could, not your photo, you could upload your lecture videos to YouTube in your own channel. Let's see, I don't have anything here, but I could upload a video. Let's see what I got. Let's see if I have anything. I do. So I will upload that. YouTube is very simple to start your channel. You just sign in and you just say create channel. My gripe is that I wish you could just use Google Drive files. So I've selected a file, I've uploaded it. But who knows? Maybe I'll have it unlisted, but maybe maybe you guys upload a file and it becomes a huge thing, and all of a sudden it hits 1 million views and you get like a ton of money. So you have to wait for it to process. Or you could find a video that you already like, that's already made. That's up to you. I like making pre-made videos just because I know what the students need to know. I know the specific class I need to know. I know if I can go faster or slower just for the specific group, but that's just me. Other people, they like to use other things. And since this is going to take a while, I'll just use there we go. Oh, already had something uploaded. That's odd. Anyway, so I will get the shareable link. I can put that into the Google quiz by URL. Actually, no, we'll go here. And now what you can do is you can have someone watch it and they can view it there. That's possible. The video formats Google uses is .webm and .mp4s. So if you already have videos, you can upload them to your Google Drive, so WebM, and you might have to convert it. So MP4s are great. That's what it likes. If you wanted to be super duper, you wanted to use your videos and add quizzes, you could use Edpuzzle. But we tried Edpuzzle, and Edpuzzle breaks things up. You can add questions to it. That itself would be like another seminar on how to use it, but you can, but we tried it. What Edpuzzle does is it allows you to break up the monotony of the video, and you can add things to it. So you can add content. I'll upload a video from the drive. But yes, I would break up videos for knowledge checks because some people will just sleep through it and they won't understand. And I wouldn't make videos 7 minutes. I would basically keep them 5 minutes or less. So if I had adding students right here, I can upload that from my Google Drive. But like I said yesterday, you could put Edpuzzle does go to Google Classroom. It allows you to see who watched the video, when they watched it, who answered it. It's great when it works, but if you're constantly adding people to Google Slides, or I mean to your Google Classroom, you have to go back and update. That's the one thing that can be difficult in Edpuzzle. So right here, you can see it. I have the option of adding Google Classroom here. It asks you to determine whether or not these legal things they want to cover themselves legally. I always put yes. And then I can go to Google Classroom. I can connect it. And then I can import my classes. And the issues that we were having was that if I have this right here, I would have to constantly go ahead and play around with the class. So students, I had to keep importing students if you add them. So they're not added, you have to add them whenever someone new comes in. So that can be a pain in the butt. But Edpuzzle itself is really great because when you have content, you can take your videos and you can edit it, and then you can put questions in. So you can put multiple choice questions or open-ended questions. So if I got to a certain point right there, I could stop it. You put in the multiple questions and and you can save it. And then just like we did in our test classroom, you have to answer it before you move on. So Edpuzzle is a really good resource if you wanted to have a video with questions to check for knowledge, or you could utilize Google Forms and add in YouTube videos. So it's up to you. The one thing I will say about Google Forms when we have the, when you have it, like how small those videos are. They're not big at all.
Welcome to the City Schools online tutorial.
So you could have videos here. It's not that big. You could make it larger or share it, but it's not big at all. So that's one gripe I have about Google Forms and YouTube. So those are the two different ways practically you could utilize videos for the trades. So the question is, Google Classroom app, it is useful on their device. It's better on a tablet. A lot of people use it on their iPads or Android tablet. It is good because if you're using the phone, you have access to the camera and you have access to the video. So if a student is working on a project, they could set up like a little tripod or put it in against the book, and then they can record the video on the phone and add it into Google Classroom. That's really one of the pros of having the app, is that you can readily take photos and add videos to assignments. It can serve as a basic LMS where they can access all of the required class content. You could have that in Google Classroom. Remember, when you have assignment, you can add materials. So this is ungraded, but you could add all of your resources that a student would have to access down here, and they could have access to it. The only thing is that it's not going to be centralized. It's going to be in each separate classroom. So it's kind of like a smaller, like it's a very basic LMS. What other people utilize is you can go to Canvas or use Blackboard, or I think Donna's team uses another thing that was created by a person who worked for Blackboard, and then the learning curve for everyone increases huge. So Google Classroom, you could become like an expert at it after a week or so. You can kind of get in that rhythm. The students can understand it too. That's the pro of Google Classroom. The only thing is that some people I've noticed in the questions are asking about transcripts, data information. That's where Google Classroom kind of is not very high end. You're not going to have access to that kind of back end kind of information. But for a basic LMS, it does what it needs to do, and you can probably find ways to get everything that you need to get it into to make it functional. But I will say that higher end LMSs are going to offer you more, but Google Classroom is basically in and out, and it's very easy to learn. So I hope I answered that one question about that. So you have Screencastify and Edpuzzle to utilize for your videos, which is going to be highly important. You will have access to the Google Rubric videos on how to set those up, because those are going to be important in terms of grading with your rubrics and learning how to do it. And we went over that. I'm thinking, is with the time that we have left, are there any last questions that you want me to go over? Or I'm trying to think of anything else that we didn't go over in terms of Google Classroom. And if you feel lost or you feel like you've drank from a fire hose, you definitely have, especially because we are in a different kind of environment here. It's actually much easier. It's a lot easier to do things in person. But also in Google Slides, I will show you two things that I forgot to show you with the time that we have left. If you want to make your slides interactive, there's these add-ons, and it's based on who It's based on what you, if it's open, but you can add Nearpod and Pear Deck. They make your slideshows interactive so people can answer questions and do things in your slideshows. So yes, Chelsea wants to show how to set up the rubrics, and absolutely, that will benefit everyone. So go ahead, Chelsea. I think you can share your screen.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So one of the things that I utilize the rubrics for, I'm going to show you guys what it is that I've been working on to kind of make it easier. I do this not only to teach myself, but so that I'm able to explain it to my very trades-related hands-on staff. So that being said, this is actually not a part of the rubric, but this is something you can do, which is send an email with the assignments that have been completed, what has not been completed, to a student. And these are what I call my placeholders. They give me an example of kind of how I want to make Google Classroom works for myself, but also because I work with all the different trades. Now, for the rubric portion, let me make sure I'm in the right account. I am. I set up a rubric in here. Classwork. Now, as you see on the side, I have topics. For me.
We can't see your screen, so if you can.
Oh, let me share it. I didn't click share yet. Share screen. Here we go. Share. It's raining cats, dogs, and chickens outside, so I apologize if you hear like Floridian thunderstorms going on in the back. All right, and you guys can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So in the first part of that, this is what I send. You would send to a student if they ever wanted like a quick transcript. It doesn't attach anything. It's just, hey, these are the classes that you were assigned. And if you graded it, if you submitted it, what that was as a part of your rubric, or if it had a grade attached to it. And then these are my placeholders of kind of how I want to structure my classes for the trades that I'll be working with. So obviously the student name, which is myself, and then what class they're in and the time that this was created, which can be helpful when you have people moving around from different councils. And so send it to that student, or send it to yourself to send to that student. Well, I think when you hit the button, it'll force you to send it over to the student. So there's that. But getting on to the rubrics portion. This is what a rubric will look like. Not a rubric. Move this here. So this is that semi-transcript. I'm going to show you my classes. And I believe I created that rubric in my first year. No, I didn't. I put it in my painter decorator. Okay, classwork. So I've been expanding on how I want to create topics and how to utilize topics as a way to create subclasses for my apprenticeship years. So first year, second year, third year, fourth year, I could go that route, or I could do, we do block schedules. I could do block 1, block 2, block 3, and then within those blocks put the actual assignments that are due for each block, also based on, you know, whatever student that is a first year, because you can select which students you want to assign course material to. And then the student will not see the course material not related to their specific year. That is a lot more work than just setting up a classroom by trade, but it's beneficial if you just kind of want to put everybody all in that one place. That being said, for my rubric portion, I set it up, and let's go down to the one I just created today. Go to my stream. Added a student, here we go. So I turned in something that was temporary, the instructions on how to complete the assignment, and then this is what a rubric for us looks like on paper. So I basically took the information for the rubric for a hands-on course and looked at it, okay, yada, yada, okay, this is what needs to be in there. Took that information and made it into a digital rubric, which is, this is for first year painter decorator. This is basically what's already printed on this paper. So I don't know if you can actually see the rubric portion.
No, we can't see it.
We cannot
Okay.
see anything.
Let me see.
We just see your block 1 painter decorator original file.
Ah, gotcha. Let me see. You can only see the original file. Okay, that's fine, because the paper is still there. Block 1. First year. Here we go. So it's this. I took the same images that we had that was just in that physical analog structure and made it into the digital version of it. So we only grant 4 points for ability to follow directions under the rubric that I am given. And so you basically just plug in that same information. And since you can save the rubric, say you are in a physical situation where you're grading a hands-on student, well, you technically could log in on your phone and grade the assignment on your phone while they're painting a wall or, you know, installing a window in front of you, and sign off on it, and it's already in their transcript so that you don't have to do it by paper and then, you know, print it out or upload it and then store it, because you've already done that portion of it. So that's one of the ways that rubrics for trades could definitely work, setting up your criteria ahead of time and plugging in that information. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Man, it's raining cats, dogs, and chickens outside. Now, did anyone have a question? The screen isn't changing. The screen didn't change. I don't know if anyone saw. Oh, okay, it did change. Okay, great. Yeah. But if you do have a question on, like I said, how to set up the rubric, I can definitely show you guys how I plan to use it. And also how, you know, it may work better for your trade. Okay, it's getting serious outside, so I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, thanks, Chelsea. Does anybody for Chelsea right now? Okay. Kyle, what do you have anything left for today, or?
The only thing I have left, I'll put it in the chat. If you want to get better at G Suite, definitely take Google has, I know it's for educators, but this really helps out on how to utilize everything from an education standpoint. They have level 1 and level 2 certifications. They're great. They're asynchronous courses that you can go through. They don't take very long, and you take a test and you get a really cool badge, and they give you some freebies and options once you pass, and it's good to have that certified if you want. Also, if anyone has any other questions or needs help, they can always reach out to me at my email address down there in the chat. And I want to thank everybody for being awesome, and this is a great group. If you have any further questions, go ahead, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them.
If anybody has questions, you can unmute yourself. So I'll take that as there aren't any questions right now. There is on the instructor lounge a topic called Google Classrooms. And we'll try to put a couple. Love it if you guys share some of the things that you're doing or the things that you're trying, or even if you need some advice about how to approach it with your current training. We can start some collaboration there on the instructor lounge. So I think that is it for today. We hope that you are walking away with some new skills and some new knowledge and some new ideas. And, you know, thank you, Kyle, for giving us your email address. You might regret that.
That's fine.
But we do have, you know, a lot of people that have some great ideas, and hopefully they'll see a way to implement the Google Classroom. So thanks, everybody. And don't forget, FTI 1026 is the course code. And you'll need to take that survey to get your final credit for attending yesterday and today's class. So thanks, everyone. We're going to sign off. Have a great day.